We've all been here at some point during our gaming career. While we appreciate the crystal clear visuals of the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles, there's just been something about that PlayStation that's been sitting in the corner, being completely unused, that feels very special to you. Often we can't play any of those older titles on newer systems due to the lack of backwards compatibility. So what do? Well, a lot of us will just go ahead and plug those consoles right into our modern TVs, using the exact same video cables that those consoles shipped with. But when we go ahead and do that, we may notice a problem. Some TVs may actually have these inputs, but some of them don't. And even if we did get everything connected, there is still be something that's just a little wrong. The video signal itself either appears blurry, has faded colors, or something just straight up doesn't look right. Maybe the image is too stretched out. Maybe it's too small. A lot of bad things could happen. So in this video, I'll provide solutions for getting some of these old game consoles on modern TVs. Let's get started. For this video, I'll be using the original Xbox, PS2, and the Nintendo Wii as examples. But this does apply to other consoles. Now, some of us might assume that these old game consoles look really bad on modern TVs because of the console's age, but that's not exactly the whole story. Sure, some of these consoles may not support widescreen or high definition, but even if it didn't support them, it really shouldn't look this bad. So why does it look bad in the first place? Well, the real cause of that is this. This is a composite video cable, an analog video signal that was primarily designed for really old TVs. And yes, I am talking about CRTs. But still, a lot of modern TVs still continue to have this connector because a lot of people still have devices that use it. And those composite video cables also come with two composite audio cables, and they actually do provide pretty good sound. It's not surround sound, it's still stereo, but this is probably the strong suit here. So how can one simple video cable be such a big problem? Well, it's an analog video cable, and these are prone to having a lot of interference in them, especially if nothing's being separated. What this cable does is that it takes the three colors and the brightness and mashes it onto one analog channel. As a result, there's a lot of interference that goes with this, even though it can output 480i, which is the resolution that most PS2 games and most Xbox games and most GameCube games output, along with some of those games being able to support 480p. So is that bad? Well, it's bad. Unless you're playing it on a CRT, which was actually designed with these cables in mind. And of course, if you were to buy a game console from this time period, these were the types of cable that they would just ship with. It wouldn't ship with anything else, unless you got something like an Xbox 360 Pro system. So is there a better solution? There is. I know some people would probably go on Amazon and look for these AV to HDMI, or composite to HDMI, or AV upscaler, or stuff like that. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Do not get those. What those do is that while they take the signal and convert it to HDMI, they basically upscale them, and they don't really look that good. What you should really aim for is try to find the best video cable that these things actually support that's not composite. Like, for example, if your console has a detachable video cable like these and not one of those plug-and-play systems with a permanently attached cable, look for a better video cable that's specifically designed for this. And there are actually some good options other than composite. For example, there's S-Video, which separates both the color and brightness of the image onto two separate channels while still being on one cable. And there's also Component, which puts all the video on 3 channels. 2 of them provide the color and 1 provides the brightness. And these consoles did officially support those cables, and that's why they actually manufactured cables for these consoles. Like, you can get a PS2 component cable or PS2 S-Video cable, and they actually provide higher quality output than the composite cable that they ship with. But Evan, you may ask, my TV has neither of those either. All it has is HDMI. So what's the solution to that? Well, let's talk about that. What I have here is something called a PS2 to HDMI. What this does is that it takes the component video signal, the highest quality signal that the PS2 supports, and converts it to HDMI, which is also a high quality video cable. It just plugs in right here like that. And on the other end, you not only get an HDMI, but you also get an aux port so you can hook up to speakers. Not exactly sure if everyone's going to use that, but yeah. It also requires external power. For comparison, this is what the PS2 looks like with composite video hooked up to a modern TV. It looks fine, but the text in some areas just look a little too soft and a bit too blurry. When you switch over to component video, it looks a lot sharper. Colors appear more accurate and more vibrant, and many faraway objects will appear much clearer as a result of the improved picture quality with the better cable. Now, since this TV does have an actual component input, I did use real PS2 component cables. This is what component looks like on this TV, and this is what it looks like using the PS2 to HDMI adapter. There is a difference in the brightness, which I will get into later. It might seem like the perfect solution to, well, the whole quality issue, and to playing retro games on newer TVs, right? Well, this one specifically has a few issues. I actually made a whole video detailing them, but in a nutshell, it is not really good for playing DVDs, and PS1 games sometimes won't output correctly on this. It also costs around $7 to $10 on eBay. But if you want to play PS1 games as well as DVDs, then you'll have to find some other options, like getting actual component cables. And if your TV doesn't support components, well, something like actual component cables along with this component to HDMI converter box may do the trick. But these can cost quite a bit, and it's probably not going to be worth it for some people. So if you only want to play PS2 games, this is fine. Also, if you go too cheap with converter boxes like these, they can also introduce more input lag and more interference. And if your TV already has component inputs, these are not necessary. So let's take the strategy we just talked about and apply it towards another console, that being the Nintendo Wii. Now, every Wii console also comes with these composite video cables, and the cable just plugs into the back like that. As you know, these exact same cables, even though it's on a different system, when you plug it into your HD TV, whether it's through a converter box or whether it's plugged in directly, they still do not look that great. And you can go for the same solution here, just grab some component cables. What I have right here is the Hyperkin HD cable for Wii. This will take the component video signal from the Wii and convert it with this little converter box with permanently attached cables over to HDMI. And it's very simple. All you do is just plug it into the back and you get an HDMI cable on the other end with no external power required, and the console actually does look quite a lot better. You also may want to dive into your system settings and make sure that the EDTV/HDTV setting is turned on. This will output the console at 480p and not 480i. And this is the best part. This Wii is backwards compatible with GameCube games, as well as controllers and memory cards. That's why it has all this stuff on the side. So this actually makes a cheaper alternative solution to playing GameCube games on HDTV, rather than actually having to go buy an actual GameCube with component cables, because getting those two is pretty expensive, and getting a Wii is not as expensive as a GameCube. But of course, the GameCube also has the Game Boy player, which doesn't work on the Wii, so that might be a reason you may want to go for the other. But of course, Wii games over HDMI look amazing. The final console I'll be demonstrating today is the original Xbox. This system has a proprietary video out connector just like every other system. By default, it will come with composite video cables, but we can do better than that. I searched on Amazon and I came across this pound HDMI adapter for around $40, so I picked it up and I gave it a try. It seems very simple. Even though it does look like it requires external power, in reality, it actually works fine without it. The image does look pretty clear at first, but if you were to compare it side by side with composite, you notice that there's this one issue with this one. The colors seem to be a bit darker than the composite video. Apparently this seems to be a flaw with all of the pound HDMI adapters, or the brightness of the image is not properly set. I have heard online that other HDMI adapters like the Hyperkin one have the same issue. Despite outputting 480p, 720p, even 1080i, the image is still not bright enough. Some areas just straight up lose their detail completely due to lack of brightness. So is there no better solution? Actually, there is. What I have here is the Electron XL from Electron Shepherd. I was sent this unit out for review, which I actually did end up doing a whole short demonstrating it. But I believe that this is the best solution if you want to get the highest video quality out of your original Xbox without having to go through any kind of hard mods. Now this one simply just plugs right into the back with no external box hanging out. The only minor complaint I have with this is that there's nothing really holding it up, so if it does get bent down a little too hard, it could easily break. However, it does feel pretty sturdy to me, so I doubt it's going to break anytime soon. And on the other end of the adapter, there's the HDMI port, and that plugs straight into your TV. When you compare the X out next to the pound HDMI adapter, there is a pretty big difference, specifically with the brightness. You can see more detail in some areas, where on the pound adapter, it would just appear so dark you couldn't even see. This Electron adapter seems to fix that issue. Now I know that internal HDMI mods do exist, but they require some soldering and I don't think it's worth it for most people. Also, when you go into your Xbox settings, make sure that 480p, 720p, and 1080i are enabled if your display supports them. But most modern TVs that are 1080p or higher will support all these settings. And just like that, your original Xbox games look really good on a flat screen TV. And even though I would prefer playing retro consoles on CRTs, I actually prefer playing original Xbox games on flat screens, simply because more Xbox games actually support 480p than PS2 games. And yes, I do still play my PS2 on a CRT. I actually failed to mention this earlier, but the PS2 to HDMI adapter actually has a very similar flaw to the pound HDMI adapter for the Xbox. And that specific flaw is that the brightness is not set correctly. I actually did compare the PS2 to HDMI with PS2 component cables, and the PS2 component cables actually did provide the more accurate colors. So if your TV has component inputs, get component cables for your PS2. I'll have the ones I used linked in the video description. Anyways, that will be it for this video. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys later.